This is Anarchast.
Hola amigos, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I have coming in from Texas, Tejas, Luis Duran Aparicio. I know him quite well. He works with me at the Dollar Vigilante. He's actually the editor at the Dollar Vigilante Latin America, and it's mostly Spanish language, but actually has some great English articles on there too. You might want to check that out. We'll have the links down below. He's got a ton of very interesting stuff to say. He's really involved in what's called conscious capitalism, which apparently was started somewhat by John Mackey of Whole Foods, who we figure is an anarcho-capitalist by everything he said, which is interesting. And if anyone knows him, please try to get him on our show. That would be excellent. But Luis is going to tell us about how he works with doing conscious capitalism, and it's very interesting. And you might have some ideas about what it might mean, and you might have some misperceptions, and we'll get Luis to tell us all about that. And we're going to talk about some environmentalism-related things from the anarchist perspective, peaceful parenting, and we'll see what else we can get into. But before we do, and the other thing that I should definitely add is Luis is going to start hosting Anarchast Español. So it'll be Spanish language Anarchast, and I'm going to be his first guest. And so if you know any Spanish-speaking anarchists that are really interesting, definitely contact Luis, and you'll be able to find him through the contacts down below. So before we get into all of that, Luis, how did you become an anarchist?
That's the coolest question that I was just looking forward to answer. It started, I started, I guess, as a little bit of a liberal from my upbringing in Mexico City. As most people are, as you said, most people there are socialists. So whenever I moved here to the States, I actually had no need to work, but I wanted to start on my own, just create my own thing. So I kind of left the household and started working. And it was funny because that's what turned me into first becoming a Republican. And because I started seeing how things were manipulated, and the Republicans were all about small government and no handouts, or so they say, right? And after I kept learning about it, reading about it, I was a little bit disappointed, and that's kind of when I found about Ron Paul in '08, and so from then on, that's the gateway drug to volunteerism. I started reading about Mrs. and Rothbard and you, Doug Casey, and Stefan, and all those cool guys.
Yeah, Stefan Molyneux, of course, past two-time guest on Anarchast, Doug Casey, a past guest. So it's great that these people have had such an influence on you, and I've hung out with you many times, or at least once, and I've spoken to you many times, and very interesting person with a lot of great ideas on how to really get the world more into anarchy or anarcho-capitalism. And let's talk about anarcho-capitalism, what you're doing with conscious capitalism. Tell us a little bit about that.
My day job, what we do is it's business consulting. So basically we go to businesses, or actually they call us, they found our page, and what we do is we bring the voluntarist idea into the corporate world. And what we do is turn the pyramid upside down from command and control, I am the boss, statism, government-like corporations, to a more organic organizations where the people are actually able to utilize their brains and not just their hands. So they're able to feel empowered and grow. And it's not just one guy, shooting, making all the decisions. So it's pretty hard at first because we usually go with the top team, the C-level people. And we teach them, and we go about for a full year, 6 sessions, one every other month. And there's coaching in between, aside from the sessions. And then that just goes down through the organization. And for instance, like a lot of our clients are in the Forbes 100 best companies to work for. And that's one example that this, voluntarist crazy idea, it's actually working in corporate America. Who would have thought?
Yeah, that's great. It's really interesting. And I'm amazed that some of these big companies are, catching on to this. Is this something that sort of John Mackey sort of started, or I don't know where this all evolved from?
Well, John Mackey wrote a book called Conscious Capitalism, and basically he is defending capitalism and explaining with apples, basically, because people can't quite understand that capitalism is what is bringing everything that's beautiful to life. So my CEO started this about 30 years ago from the teachings of Robert Greenleaf, which was a Quaker. And as you know, Quakers are mostly libertarians. So basically, do what you need to do and don't mess with other people. And that's all there needs to be to it. Obviously, there is the sense of, which is basically kind of what I liked from the days when I was a liberal, the fact of helping one another, community, if you will. But at the same time, I like my individuality. So here has the best from both sides. We get to help one another, which is the part of capitalism, and the individuality, which is the anarchism. So we have conscious capitalism or anarcho-capitalism.
That's great, and I know you're very aware of different businesses and what they're doing, and you brought up a great thing before we came on about you just recently visited a coal plant and your experiences there. Why don't you tell the audience about that?
Oh, man, and thank you for your flexibility that I came a little late. I just got back from a coal plant here in Texas, pretty close to College Station. I'm not going to say which one, but the guy gave us a tour of the plant and the mine. So we went to both places. And, all the Greens are always like, coal plants are the worst for the planet. Isn't that bad? Horrible. Well, the guy showed us that they have state-of-the-art technology where they emit almost zero emissions. And basically the towers that you see all the smoke, that's basically just steam. I have pictures that, I just posted on Facebook where all the steps that the coal goes from, the water and all the chemicals they use to neutralize the what they call the noxious elements, they basically get destroyed. So it's super clean. And the mining part, if they own the land or they lease it, it doesn't matter. Their goal is to make it just like it was before they got it or better. So they have people in their team, the environmental team, that gets together and does the planning, and they get a bunch of basically money from corporate world to fix the environment without any coercion of any sort.
Yeah, the whole environmental thing, I've been talking about this quite a bit recently, that I think we can really bring in a lot of the environmental, sort of the greenies sort of people into anarchy, because I think we can't bring them all in, because I think a lot of them are just, they hate human beings, and that's really why they're an environmentalist. But there is a lot of people who just really want to see a really nice environment, and they think that the way to get that is through big government. And in so many cases, it's usually the government that's just really destroying the environment. And in many cases, as you just pointed out, the things like the coal plants, which they always bring up, they say, oh, this is terrible, and Barack Obama is just constantly talking about it. We have to shut them all down. And as you just pointed out, this seems to be almost completely environmentally friendly.
Yeah, totally. And that was, it's one thing reading about it, but actually going to the plant, getting the tour from the actual plant man, it opens your eyes really nicely. Another little thing there, my car, it's a muscle car, and it gives me about 27, 28 miles to the gallon. I got to drive a hybrid today, V6, same thing, and it gave about 26 miles to the gallon. So. My car's not hybrid and it's a muscle car, so what the heck, right? It's all a scam.
That's amazing. It doesn't actually have any improvement whatsoever.
1 or 2 miles.
And there's so much technology that the governments keep out. I know there's cars over in Europe that can get like 80 miles a gallon, but they won't let them into the U.S. I've heard about this. Have you heard about that?
Yes, I have.
Yes, some Volkswagen or something, and they won't let it in because they would compete too much with, compete and actually make people's lives better and actually help save the environment. And no, that's not allowed. It's just crazy, all this government stuff. It just, once you start to see it as you have, and you start to look at the world around, wherever you might be, whether it might be at this coal plant or in a corporation or whatever, and you just see all of the things that governments just got wrong or is ruining, and it kind of can make you a little crazy, and that's why I don't mind having a few drinks every now and then and get my mind off of it. But one thing I really like talking about, and I'm so huge on it, is peaceful parenting. And I've talked about this many times before about how I do it and how it's changed the entire environment in our house with our kids. In fact, even with our dogs, everyone's just so much more calm and happy now because we deal with things without any sort of violence whatsoever, including vocal. We don't yell or anything. We just calmly work through issues and just advise our kids and not force them to do anything. And I know you do the same, so I'd like to hear your experiences.
Yes, we started. I have two kids. One is 9, one's 5. We started with the 9-year-old. We took her. We were totally against public or government schools, so we started taking her to a private school for a year and a half, and then we saw that even at this pretty cool private school, she was too smart, and then she had to kind of wait for the other kids to, I guess, catch on. So I was like, well, I'm wasting all that money just for a babysitter. I don't want that. So my wife had read a book on schooling by Sandra Dodd. And I was like, well, I don't know. I kind of like private school, but let's think about it. So she kind of convinced me, and I'll give her credit for this. And we started doing it. And at first, it was really not easy because all of us were in the schedule of schooling, right? So what the book actually talks about is that there's got to be a time to decompress if you had kids in school and then get them out. So that we got a little scared because she didn't want to do a whole lot of things if she wasn't told to do it. And not just told, but actually like, okay, dude, you have to do this now. So it went for a year before she actually had inspiration of her own. So that's how much school fucks with your mind even after a year and a half of being schooled. So she...
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Now, our 5-year-old has never even considered going to school. But we use a lot of Khan Academy and a lot of online tools, and we do outings. We go here, we go there. They watch a lot of documentaries. We don't spank. My child still has his foreskin, and it just seems organic. It seems natural, and it seems pretty virtuous. It seems like, in my opinion, the easiest way for achieving peace is through homeschooling or peaceful parenting if you're schooling. I think that's one of the most important things. Instead of just throwing them out because you kind of have to go to work and you don't want to have to deal with the kids, you put them in a babysitter government school. I think that's kind of considered abuse in my mind.
Oh yeah, I wrote an article actually on Dollar Vigilante that I said if you send your kids to public school, you're a child abuser, and it totally is the case. Unless they want to go, which not many kids probably do want to go, and if they make the choice to go, that's fine. But if you're actually forcing them in, that's actually child abuse.
Yeah, I went all my life in like private school, so I used to think that was the way to go. The mental model kind of thing, and then after if you're honest with yourself, you're gonna come up with these conclusions that, like you said, it's not right at all. So now they just pick up books, but the secret is to actually make your house into a learning environment. So put books here, the iPads here, download iPads that actually help them learn and play at the same time. And there's we learn through play, and that's something really important that is usually bypassed.
Yeah, everything in the government-run education system is just all wrong. Putting all these kids in the same age group for 12 years straight is incredibly bad because, of course, especially when they're hitting puberty, and they're just surrounded by everyone else hitting puberty, and they don't really have any other people in their clique of people they're allowed to associate with to kind of deal with these new feelings, and it's just, everything is just wrong. It's just it's unbelievable how many things are wrong. And you brought up circumcision. I don't think I've ever talked about that on Anarchast, but it's something that I think is very important to talk about. I was circumcised, and I actually told my mom I wasn't very happy about it once I found out what actually happened. And she actually apologized to me, and she said, I just didn't know it. Back then in the 1970s in Canada, in the government-run hospitals, they would pretty much just circumcise every kid. It wasn't even, I think they did ask, but it was just so almost like it was a common thing to do. And back then, not as many people had access to information. They didn't realize what a horrible thing it is to do to a baby. I actually, and this is sort of a in-depth information about my own penis here on Anarchast, I actually did something called foreskin restoration. Now, there's actually ways to stretch the skin to actually sort of semi-regrow a foreskin. It's not as good because all those nerve endings that you lose are gone forever, but you can actually protect the cover of your penis, which is very important because otherwise it's meant to be that way. That's sort of how nature is. And it's just unbelievable to me how many people in a place like the US will say, they'll read an article about female circumcision in Africa, and they'll go, those barbarians, what kind of horrible people are these? And then they have their son circumcised, just chop off half the skin of his penis off for no reason whatsoever, cause him a great amount of pain, which is really a huge thing, actually. I think this is way under thought about because whenever you have, and this gets into a little bit of what the Scientology kind of people talk about, and I think there's something to it, that when you get these major painful things happening, especially when you're younger, this can cause dramatic effects for the rest of your life. And to take a kid who's just been born and then start like chopping parts of his body off is beyond barbaric. And like if you're a kid, you're a boy, and you were 20, and for some reason you wanted to do it, go ahead, that's your choice. But to actually do that to someone without their consent is heinous. It's unbelievable, and I think it has bigger repercussions than I think most people have thought about. And I've thought about this because in the Middle East, there's been a lot of problems, a lot of really, not everyone, not everywhere, obviously, but there's been more problems there than in a lot of other parts of the world. And in the areas where there's really a lot of problems, all the people have been circumcised. So that all the Israelis have been circumcised. You look at even in the world today, where a lot of the people who really seem to have like they're overly aggressive or they have problems, it seems to be in a place like the U.S. Where a lot of people get circumcised. Then you go to a place like Mexico where no one gets circumcised. Everyone seems a lot happier. I think it actually has a real effect on how people develop. And I'm not saying it's for sure. I haven't done any scientific studies whatsoever except for looking up a few Google facts. I always ask Google; he always knows. And but I think that this is more important than most people even realize, and most people don't even think about it, which I think is insane.
One thing that I totally agree with what you said. And one thing that a lot of people deny, maybe because it's such a purist country that, sex is such a taboo. So you're not supposed to enjoy it. You're supposed to be in the dark and, right? So like if you're actually enjoying it a lot, that's probably sinful, you evil pig, right? So one thing that my mom told me since I was young, she said, you take care of that weenie because that weenie is part of your happiness. and it is, I mean,
yeah, I agree.
We put a lot of shame into our private parts. And I mean, I can go on like, because I also have a lot of, I've done a bunch of studies on theology, and it all goes back to sex. So that we have a lot of shadow to heal there. Now, speaking of healing, I think that one thing that I really like from Jeffrey Tucker is that his whole idea is don't fight the darkness, light up a candle. So one way to help all these people understand is not by being assholes and telling them you're doing this wrong, but instead of focusing on how we can fix the situation. And believe it or not, this is something that we teach CFOs and COOs and CEOs and corporations because they are still figuring things out. So if these guys are not figuring it out yet, how can we expect these guys to do it without compassion, right? Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally, yeah.
So that's basically what I mean.
Yeah, there was I forget who I heard it from, but someone said, and talking about lightness and darkness and actually healing and the truth versus the negative things of darkness and lies and hate is... like you said, if you go into a dark room and you light up a candle, the entire room is lit up. But you can't take darkness. You can't take like a storage container of darkness, bring it into a park in the daylight, and open it and make the whole park dark. So I think it's small things that spreading this knowledge and spreading truth and helping people through the healing process. I think, well, actually everyone has been damaged by something in their lifetime, if not numerous things. And a lot of them are very direct, like actually getting beaten up all the time by their parents parents or something. Yeah, definitely, I've always found that compassion is the best way, and empathy to deal with people. It never works. If you're out there, if you're an anarchist and you really believe anarchy is a great way to be, and you wish more people were like that, don't go out and start yelling at status. That's not going to accomplish anything. Yelling at anybody rarely accomplishes anything, and that's all you see on the U.S. TV. So people think that's a normal way to behave. But no, just show compassion. Not everyone knows the things you know, and who knows if you're even right. But you can only sort of follow your own heart, and also to do as much research and learn as much as possible, and actually do your own research and look into things, and through that, I think we can really help change the world. And it's not going to come. And it's so funny because so many of these anarchist sort of things, the way that we're going to achieve a much more peaceful and prosperous world, which I believe would be an anarchic world, is not through any sort of violence whatsoever, including even yelling at status or anything like that. All the things that will bring about anarchy are the things that anarchy is all about, which is peaceful, non-initiating force, things like that. So it's really such a beautiful philosophy and ideology. And isn't it funny that if you asked most people on Earth what they think about anarchy, they think it's a horrible thing.
Yeah, they're like, well, but then that takes us to the whole story of anarchy, because there are two schools of thought of anarchy: the European and the American one. And the European is the guys that break windows, spray on property, and and
communists.
Then, yeah, basically the anarcho-communist, if there's such a thing. Which
no such thing. They're just communists.
Okay, and then anarchy, which is peace, the one you're talking about, that's a little bit of a newer ideology. So it kind of freaks people out. Just sometimes I just like to go somewhere and like, yeah, I'm an anarchist, and they're like, what? So just to break paradigms, and just to bring one last thing to that healing part, before turning complete anarchist, I was kind of just playing with anarchy / libertarianism, and I did, I was exploring with my consciousness. So I did some San Pedro cactus and ayahuasca. And after one trip of San Pedro, basically he said that there's no doing away with money. Because that was my question. Can we just get rid of money so everybody could be happy, like they said? So, all this big trip and explaining and showing how that just doesn't work. So basically, I got a whole course of economics and monetary policy, years of it in 6 hours. And that's basically what turned me from, libertarian-ish to anarchist in, I guess, overnight.
That's great. Yeah, and I've been talking a lot about ayahuasca, and we actually spoke. We were going to even try to do some San Pedro last time I was in Dallas. Was that Dallas? No, Austin. I travel every day, so I don't know where I am. But I never got around to it because he told me I couldn't drink for 5 days, and I said, well, that's not possible. So, but one of these days I'm going to probably try to do it. And actually, what it really is, I drink quite a bit when I'm on the road and at these conferences, because I'm quite, as most anarchists are, and you can't actually tell because I've gotten over a lot of my issues with being quite more. I used to be incredibly shy, actually. Like, I was so shy that I couldn't even talk to anyone when I was 12 years old. And quite introverted, and I just kind of worked on myself. I actually became a rapper in Canada just to get over my shyness. Like, I always like to do the most extreme thing possible to get over problems. So I was like, well, I can't even go to the store and talk to people. So what's the most extreme thing I could possibly do to just make myself stop being like this? And so I became a rapper, and I became the #2 white rapper in Canada behind Tom Green in the 1980s. That's a whole other side story, but. I was talking about being introverted. What were you talking about? I had a point. I kind of rambled on and got sidetracked. You were mentioning...
We were talking about the healing.
Oh, ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget how I was tying that into being introverted, though.
Well, let's do it in Mexico next time I go visit you.
Oh, that's what I was going to... That was my point of that ramble, was, when I'm on the road... you're in a different hotel every day, you're at different conferences, you're talking to millions of people, and that's not really something that I find enjoyable to do on a regular basis, but I do it a lot. I do enjoy it, definitely, with certain people, certain times, but it really takes a ton of energy out of me. And sort of to get through a lot of that, I have some drinks, because I'd rather be home. I'd rather just be here in my little, in my house with my kids and my dogs and just doing my work all day. I'd rather do that. So that's why I didn't do it while I was on the road. But I could definitely do it down here because I live a much more relaxed lifestyle. When I'm at home, I'm much more at peace and just much happier. And so I don't look to other things to give me a little boost. And so yeah, but we'll definitely do it because I've heard so many great things, and I know you've done it. And so many people I know now have been doing it and have done it, and I hear almost nothing but great things about it. And so yeah, definitely when you come down, we're definitely going to have to find some San Pedro or at least peyote or something.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a lot of experience with peyote, but certainly we can have a San Pedro ceremony in your house.
Sounds good. Well, I'm actually running out of time on my camera memory stick, so we're going to have to cut this short, but it's been really great talking to Luis Duran Aparicio. Definitely check him out on Anarchast Español, si te hablas español, and also check out TDV Latin America. We've got a lot of great content on there, and Luis has been doing a lot of great work there. So thank you very much, Luis.
I just want to thank Raul, because he's the one that invited me to the Dollar Vigilante Latin America, so thank you.
Yeah, Raul, who was another past Anarchast guest, and he's based out of Lima, Peru. Great guy, and they've been doing some great stuff at TDV Latin America. We'll have the links down below. Check it out. And that's been it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
This is Anarchast.